Again, a very important issue that's facing many Australians, and I ask why. Here we go again. Here we go again. This is not my first attempt to bring this issue into the light, and it won't be my last. In fact, it's the 5th attempt for common sense. Let me go back at least a year and a half ago, have to be at least that, where we had parents and mothers come to this parliament, walked the hall, spoke to everyone and said, we want an inquiry into puberty blockers and in gender dysphoria and about the hormone treatment. They said they got a great response. But guess what? The 5th time now before this parliament, because I haven't been able to get common sense out of the senators in this place to realise how important it is to have this inquiry. And it's led by the Albanese Greens government. The Albanese government has become even more isolated in its denial of the harms caused by puberty blockers administered to children presenting with gender identity issues. Labor has become more isolated in their denial of the lack of clinical evidence supporting the safe use of these treatments. They have been isolated by our closest friends, the United Kingdom, the United States and just last week, New Zealand. Other countries are seeing the light on puberty blockers through studies conducted and the lack of evidence supporting their use. Belgium, Canada, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Finland, Italy and even Turkey. These countries have woken up. Here in Australia, the government is still asleep at the wheel. Here in Australia, the government has repeatedly denied an inquiry into the rapid increase in children attending gender clinics and how they are being treated. They claim their denial of an inquiry is to protect trans people and children with gender issues from harm. Can you believe that? From harm. But it's their denial of the truth which is causing more harm. The truth was laid bare by the Cass Review in the United Kingdom, the final report of which was published in April. This review was commissioned by the UK's National Health Service in 2020 in response to issues at the Tavistock Gender Clinic in London, especially a rapid, massive increase in the number of children being treated there. In 2011, 250 children sought treatment at the clinic. In 2021, 10 years later, the figure has risen to more than 5,000. The review's findings included there is no simple explanation for the increase in the numbers of predominantly young people and young adults who have a trans or gender diverse identity, but there is broad agreement that it is a result of a complex interplay between biological, psychological and social factors. There are conflicting views about the clinical approach, with expectations of care at times being far from usual clinical practice. This has made some clinicians fearful of working with gender-questioning young people, despite their presentation being similar to many children and young people presenting to other NHS services. An appraisal of international guidelines for care and treatment of children and young people with gender incongruence found that no single guideline could be applied in its entirety. While a considerable amount of research has been published in this field, systematic evidence reviews demonstrated the poor quality of the published studies, meaning there is not a reliable evidence base upon which to make clinical decisions, or for the children and their families to make informed choices. The strengths and weaknesses of the evidence base on the care of children and young people are often misrepresented and overstated both in scientific publications and social debate. The rationale for early puberty suppression remains unclear, with weak evidence regarding the impact on gender dysphoria, mental or physiosocial health. The effect on cognitive and psychosexual development of puberty suppression remains unknown. The use of masculinising, feminising hormones in those under the age of 18 also presents many unknowns despite their long-standing use in the adult transgender population. Clinicians are unable to determine with any certainty which children and young people will go on to have an enduring trans identity. And for the majority of young people, a medical pathway may not be the best way to manage their gender-related distress. For those young people for whom a medical pathway is clinically indicated, it is not enough to provide this without also addressing wider mental health and or physio-socially challenging problems. There are similar rapid rises of children being treated for gender dysphoria in other countries, including Australia. From 2014 to 2021, there was a tenfold increase in Australian children being treated at public gender clinics. In the same period, there was a 100-fold increase in Australian children being treated with puberty blockers, more than 2,000 of them. There are no figures available for private gender clinics, so the true number is obviously much higher. If it were almost any other condition requiring a form of medical treatment, there would be outrage. There would be demands for inquiries, commissions, reviews, legislation and funding for public awareness campaigns, but not for this issue. It's because Labor, the Greens and some Liberals, also Senator David Pocock and other cross-bench independent senators, subscribe to gender ideology. They're part of it. They're part of an ideology that says all children with complex mental health and identity issues can solve the problem by changing their gender. They're as responsible as any extreme trans activist for the appalling way these children are being used to further an ideology the majority of Australians despise. Sound familiar? Labor and the Greens hold many positions directly opposed by the majority of Australians. Record immigration, climate change nonsense, the voice of Parliament, the list goes on and on. They don't permit debate or inquiry because they know their position is indefensible and they know the neglect is criminal and immoral. They just chant, trans rights are human rights, as if this is all the response that is needed. Children's rights are human rights too. They have a right to the best, comprehensive, holistic treatment for gender identity issues we can provide. That right has been denied to them. Anyone who speaks for the more comprehensive, holistic approach these children deserve, just ask Dr. Gillian Spencer, a highly qualified child psychologist, now locked in a legal battle with a Queensland Children's Hospital. This hospital tried to force Dr. Spencer to endorse its gender affirmation approach despite her serious misgivings about it. It tried to force her to comply with the gender ideology of Labor and the Greens and suspended her for expressing concerns about this politicised approach. Labor and the Greens will do everything they can to protect this ideology from any scrutiny. But I warn them, their time is coming. Western society is pushing back. If developments in the United Kingdom haven't sounded the alarm, perhaps developments across the Tasman will. New Zealand's Ministry of Health has announced it will issue guidance to ensure children with gender issues receive the treatment they deserve instead of being automatically put on the sex change production line. Just like the Cass review, the ministry has concluded there is insufficient evidence supporting the use of puberty blockers and insufficient evidence about their long-term harms. The evidence is piling up. Gender ideology ignores clinical evidence. Labor and the Greens are ignoring clinical evidence. Gender ideology is destroying the lives of these kids and their families. Labor and the Greens and some of the crossbench and some of the Liberals are destroying the lives of these kids and their families. That's why they'll likely vote against this inquiry. They don't want the truth of this ideology exposed to the Australian people. Now, what I'm calling for in my motion is for it to be adopt evidence-based safeguards on the use of puberty blockers for gender dysphoria adolescents, aligning with international best practices, with particular reference to the dangers posed by puberty blockers as evidenced by poor quality and inconclusive research for their safety and efficiency. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? The inadequacy of current Australian safeguards compared to more precautionary approaches adopted in New Zealand, the United Kingdom and other nations. The over-reliance on experimental treatments instead of prioritising holistic psychological and social interventions for young people experiencing gender dysphoria. And it goes on. This is basic common sense, what I'm asking for an investigation into it, to have the parents and other organisations come forward and give their evidence to a Senate inquiry. This is not a piece of legislation. This is only an inquiry. And this is what the people want. If you care about the children out there, then why won't you have an inquiry? Why are you a bunch of gutless wonders who will not stand up for these children? I don't get it. I really don't get it. And it's got nothing to do with transgender. You know, let adults, as adults, make the decisions. Let them go and get their puberty blockers and all the damage that's been done. And I've got to tell the people out there, puberty blockers are irreversible. And the harm it's doing to these people, even their bone structure, everything, it just has an impact on their whole health. And these people, these kids that I've heard from the parents, their lives are actually destroyed because of this, and you don't care. You absolutely don't care about these people at all. And it blows my mind that you're supposed to be here. It's no skin off your nose to have the inquiry. Nothing would, that you've got nothing to lose, but everything to gain by showing that you're upfront and honest with the Australian people and giving them the opportunity to offer their evidence in this inquiry. And you can't tell me that every Labor member over there of Parliament agrees with this, that you will not have an inquiry. What is wrong with you gutless wonders over there? You were voted in
Hanson,
to represent the people of this nation. I heard you. And the fact is that these people of this nation want you to represent them, and you vote in a block that you will not allow this inquiry to happen. I don't believe you. I really don't. Not an important issue like this. At least I've got to say, I don't agree with the Lib's stance on this as well. Birmingham, Bragg, Hume, Kovacic, Smith, they're the same. They support all this. They support this rubbish. But at least, they did vote against my first inquiry with this. And what surprised me so much is Senator Kovacic actually came and spoke to me about it, because she was told I've got another agenda with all this. So she came to speak to me personally and said, what is this all about? I explained it to her. She said, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with what you want to have this inquiry for. Isn't it funny? They must have got to her, because she's never voted for it since. Isn't it a shame that because, you find out the reasons why, you want to represent the people out there, and then you don't vote, you vote against it. And that's what happens in this place all the time. That's why most of the time I don't have respect for most of the people in this parliament at all, because you don't stand up for what you believe in. At least I sleep at night, and I know I'm out there fighting for the rights of the Australian people, and I will keep fighting for the rights of these children to actually have an inquiry. Let the parents have their say. Bring the evidence forward. Other countries are waking up with regards to this. It is about the children. You destroy them, their bodies, it will never recover again. No wonder we've got so much mental health that's going on in this country. And you're responsible for it. You are responsible, and it's a shame on this parliament that you keep allowing this to happen time and time again. I don't expect you to have a change of heart and you will support this notice of motion of mine to get it before an inquiry. I'd be absolutely gobsmacked, and I will actually be so grateful if some common sense prevails out there that you allow this inquiry. And a special call, Senator David Pocock, Get some guts about you, mate, and vote for this one.
Senator Hanson, your time has expired.